Hi, I say it all the time. Leadership isn't everything, but it's the first thing. Leaders like you get there first in so many ways. If you focus on results, they will focus on results. If you focus on the mission, so will they. If you're anxious, they'll be anxious. If you're courageous, they'll be courageous. If you're focused on strengths rather than deficits and weaknesses, they'll be. If you slow down, they'll slow down. If you are fill in the blank, then they will fill in the blank. You may lead in what we call a tight system. That means that whatever you do has almost immediate effect. Your example, your effort, almost immediate effect because you're tight. Or you may lead in a loose system. That means that whatever you do has a delayed effect. Either way, as you go, so goes the group of people that you lead. So you've heard about the herd effect, right? A lot's been written about how we function in groups of people. Some people that have studied this have even concluded that since our herd response as human beings is so strong, it actually completely defines us. Some people think that there's no overcoming our tendency to stampede in human groups. Let's talk about that a little bit. If you have ever been in a group of people and you yawn, have you noticed that other people yawn too? We call that the yawn effect. If you're in a group and you look up, people are going to look up. If you're in a group that's kind of tight and you get a panic look on your face and take off running, it's likely that a bunch of people are going to follow you without even knowing why. Zoom out a little bit. If the stock market starts to drop, it will likely continue to drop. The psychological effect of it is that we are herd in our response. If it tends to rise, it will rise more because people think, oh, things are going better. We tend to be like herds. My mother kind of had this figured out. When I used my friend's behavior as an excuse when I was growing up for my behavior, she would ask, well, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? Kind of bobblehead response. And I may or may not have responded with something like, well, it depends on my friends. And it depends on the bridge. She may or may not have had a follow-up question. How would you like your face slapped? Well, anyway, marketers have figured out this herd effect too. Nike built an empire on the idea of the herd effect. The very first athlete that they were affiliated with was Steve Prefontaine, who was an up-and-coming, back in the day, Oregon runner. And when others around him saw his success and the shoes that he was wearing, the stampede began, and it's continued to this day. Steve Jobs knew that well. He got a few people to run towards that white iPod and watch out. In behavioral economics, we have come to call this herd kind of effect as the fear of missing out, or FOMO. I'm afraid I'm going to miss out, so I'm just going to follow other people. A little bit of a sidebar. FOMO, or fear of missing out, really only describes people who are extroverted. Introverts have a phobiatism. In other words, they have an F-O-B-I-A-H-T-S-N. That's the fear of being invited and having to say no. But that's not you, right? Anyway, back in the day, it was a Tuesday. Back in 1895, it was Gustave Le Bon who first characterized social and emotional contagion theory. He described how people who observe the emotions and behaviors of other people in groups, especially of influential people, like within a group, they tend to copy those emotions and behaviors. They tend to mimic them. On a simple level, for instance, when somebody smiles happily around others and laughs, then others around them are more likely to smile and feel happy and laugh too. On a little more complex level, when someone of influence in a group gets afraid, so does the group. And then fast forward, it was Hatfield in about 1993 or so, who described the spread of negative compared to positive emotions in groups, like the spread of a virus. Negative emotions spread faster and last longer than do positive ones. Especially if you're an influencer. Maybe that's where the phrase came from. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. As people, we can tend in groups to thoughtlessly stampede. because in some ways it's kind of natural for us. But that's not the best we can do. We can do better. We don't have to stampede to Target whenever there's a sale on stuff we don't need. We don't have to stampede into the outrage of the day. We don't have to compulsively follow the fashion of the day or the fear of the day. We can do better. Remember, leadership isn't everything, but it's the first thing. If you are an anxious, needy, insecure leader, you'll create teams that are anxious and needy and insecure. Your anxiety will then increase because of their anxiety, and the stampede is on. Like the neurotic George Costanza from that Seinfeld episode when someone yelled fire in a crowded apartment, you will stampede through the apartment and run right over old ladies, and everyone else will follow you. There doesn't even have to be a fire, just the anxiety of a fire. Anxious leaders create herds. Herds stampede. It's what they do. But non-anxious, robust, unselfish leaders create community in all its forms. Because your leadership in the storm, or even when there's merely the threat of a storm, and because of how you dare people to work together, to put their selfishness aside and to fulfill promises, to accomplish together what they can't do, then they will not stampede. Community can take on the form of a family or of a high-performing team or even an entire enterprise. It can be like the local Rotary, it could be a startup business, it could be a research team or a local small church or even a group of neighbors. It can be a mountaineering team or a squad of soldiers or the A shift in a fire department on an island. When a group of us come together and focus on something important and outside of ourselves, we have leaders who are unselfish then that are a part of that mix and not reactive to the emotional winds or the weirdness of those they lead, then we will become a community. Long after the need of the season is met, the interpersonal bonds of that community will remain. And so the results of the community and how that community created those results will remain as well. So how can you become one of those leaders that creates a community in all of its various forms rather than fosters a stampeding herd? Well, here are 10 things that I've learned, and I'm probably still learning them, right? You can practice these things. In time, you could become one of those great, robust, and courageous leaders for your group. You're probably practicing some of these already, so let's go through the list quickly. Number 1, remind yourself of the mission. We're all mission-oriented. If there's no mission, then we will default to a personal comfort mission. Our purpose is just to get through this in a comfortable way. There has to be a mission outside of us that's bigger than us and better than us. So remind yourself of the mission. 2, remind yourself of the compelling results that you're trying to achieve. And you know that results are what remain after all the work is done. 3, remind yourself regularly, maybe many times a day, that you serve. You don't deserve. As soon as you start thinking, oh, I deserve, I've paid my dues, remind yourself, I'm here to serve. Here's the 4th idea. Pick up litter. What I mean by that is if you are in a space and you walk by and see some garbage someone has dropped, accidentally or on purpose, stop it, pick it up, and throw it away. That is a reminder, it's a discipline that will remind you that no job is beneath you because you're here to serve. I'm serious about that. Here's the 5th idea. Practice the discipline of self-control in areas where you don't need self-control, so that when you do need self-control, you'll have it. Here's the 6th one. Take a deep breath, break the cycle of reactivity to the intense emotions of other people, especially to those close to you. Choose to not ride the wave of their strong, intense emotions. I call that getting clinical. You can actually choose to still be compassionate and be kind, but not ride the wave of other people's strong, intense emotions. Here's the 7th idea. Don't join herds. When herds take off running, stand still. Here's the 8th idea. Don't blame. Take responsibility for where you place your trust, for your perspective and for your behavior. Especially take responsibility for any comfort-seeking behavior that you do that's designed to make you feel better in the moment, but not be better, especially when you're afraid and stressed and anxious. Here's the 9th idea. Avoid quick fixes that focus on symptoms rather than root causes. You probably do this already, right? And here's the last idea. Never use your own lack of courage or failure of nerve as an excuse to avoid the hard stuff. So, look around at your team. Look around at your friends and your family and your organization and your groups. If you're a leader, it means that people follow you. They follow you whether you want them to follow you or not. Are you creating a stampede or are you creating a community? Are you creating a herd or are you creating a team? It's up to you. No pressure. Have a great day.